Hey everyone, this is Daniel, and in today's video we're going to cover Power Automate for Desktop message boxes. And this is a continuation of my overall Power Automate for Desktop series. Okay, so like I mentioned, in this video we are going to deep dive in each and every one of the message box actions that is available, and we'll even look at the advanced settings. And then finally at the end, which is the icing on the cake, we'll go and take a look at how the subflow works, because the subflow adds the real wow factor to the custom form functionality which is available in the message boxes. So stick around, there's a lot to cover. But first, here's my intro video. So let's get started. And over here, we are using the Power Automate for Desktop running on my Windows 11 machine. And for the new flow that I'm going to create, I'll click on the plus new flow. I'll go ahead and give it a name, click on create. And now we will get directly inside the console, the real place that we can go in and do all the automation. And so the console opens up and it's telling me getting things ready. Now, right over here is where we'll go and start adding our message boxes. And if you can't really find the message boxes, which by the way it is over here, go ahead and do a search. It makes it so much more easier to find everything that you need. So the moment I just typed in message, as you can see, it automatically gives me every action that may have the word message into it, but it also goes and gives us an entire category of message boxes, all right? Something just to keep in mind that if you can't find it, just do a quick search. So now we've got all of these actions of message boxes, and we're going to go through them each and every one right from the beginning. So the first one is, let's go and grab display message, and I click on it with my left button still down. I can do a drag and drop, and I can drop it over here right as my action. And here is the first display message that I'm going to look at. And it gives you quite a few parameters where you can work with: the title, the display, the icon, how many buttons I should add. So let's go and actually take a look at a bunch of them. So the first thing I'm going to add is the title. When the message box comes up right on the top, what is the title? Almost it looks like a label. So I'm going to say something like this. Say, read this. And I'll just put that in. For the message, I'll go and paste something in. It says, it is important for you to read this useless message from a display message standpoint. Just went and added a little humor over there. But now you've got the message box icon, and that really helps, because now you can go and say, hey, what kind of message is this? And the icon will really help elaborate that. So is this a type information? Is it a type question? Is it a warning? Or is it an error? You've got icons for all of them. So let's go and start with information, and we'll go and play with a bunch of them afterwards. Message box buttons. Remember, in Power Apps, we had to actually add our own buttons. Well, over here, you've also got the flexibility to pick and choose which buttons you want. So I can just do with an OK. I can do an OK and cancel. I can do a yes and no, and all of these other ones. So let me just go with an OK for now, and then I'll keep the message always on the top. That means that if there are a bunch of windows available on your machine, this message will always be on the top. It will never be hidden by any other windows or machine. And then afterwards, we'll also have a message box close automatically, and I'll take a look at that in a second. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on save, and I'm also going to be a good steward, and I'll go and click on save over here. That means the entire flow is saved. We just save the action. I want to save the flow as well, so I don't lose any of my work. And so when I now go ahead and just do a run, it goes ahead and runs the first one, and you see now this message came up. It's pretty awesome. Directly built into the operating system, the message box came up. And over here, since we selected the information type, the notification, see right over here is the information icon that came up. On the top is the label. We said read this with 2 exclamation marks. And then we also put the message. So you see it's all coming in. And then we only selected one button, which was OK. So that got selected. Now watch this. Once this message got selected, it automatically went and assigned a variable called button pressed. You see over here flow variables. And when I click on OK, it will record what I selected in that flow variable. So variables is a really powerful service available inside the Power Automate for Desktop, because it's actually recording everything. But now let's go and actually tweak a few things, all right? So I just went on that action and I double clicked on it. And in the message box buttons, I'll go and click on that and I'll say, well, let's just do an OK or cancel. And we will go ahead and now change the information from a information. We'll go and say, hey, let's just put it as a question, just so that we can see what is going on. Now let's also play with this close message box automatically. I'm going to toggle this on, and the moment I do that, the timeout parameter comes up. So the timeout, by default, it is set to 3, which is basically 3 seconds. I can bump that up a little higher too. I can bump that up to 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever you want, but I do like this 3 seconds. Next is the button pressed. You can actually go ahead and double click on that and change that variable name. So I could just go and say this something as like that. I can say message button pressed, all right? And then I'll click on save. So now everything has been updated. So I'll again, as a good steward, click on save, and then we'll go and run it. So when I run it, a couple of things have happened. We've changed a few things. First, we went and changed the icon. And we also went and added another button, but it ran too fast. So let's actually double click over here and we'll go and change that now, say to about 10 seconds. So we actually have a time to talk. I'll go and even change the, the question. Let's run it first again. I'll click on save. When I click on save and I'll click on run, the message box comes up. And remember, now we changed the icon to the question mark. We also now added two buttons because there was the OK and the cancel. And the timer is running in the back end because we set it for 10 seconds. So the moment the 10 seconds is finished, the OK was the one that got selected. But if I went and say ran it again, and if I went and just clicked on cancel, the cancel gets selected and it gets added to the variable. And by the way, the variable name changed over there. So you can actually always come and tweak things around. You can go and now select abort, retry, ignore. I can go and change it from a message to an error. You can do all of these things. And then when you go and actually run it, it immediately takes effect for you to see that. So you see this, read this. It's got that other icon now. You've got the three buttons. And then regardless of which one you select, the variable will remember what you selected over there. So this is the first one, which is a simple one for display message. Now, let's go and take a look at the display input dialog. So we come down over here to the message boxes. I'll click on it. I kept my left button clicked down. I'll drag and I'll drop it. And now we see the dialog box of all the properties that are available. So as the name suggests, it is a display input dialog, which means you are having a dialogue with the user who's using this. So in the dialog, there's a couple of things we can actually say is that, again, title, I want to put something important, which is say, read this message, all right? And I put an exclamation mark too. And in the dialog, I want to actually ask the user, hey, this is what I need you to give me an input of. So I'll just paste something and I'm actually basically asking a question. Is that add a reason why you are being you. And now I can go and put in a default message as well. I can actually go and put in a default value where the user could have already given something that you already anticipated. So default value types is very important. And then the input type, you've got a few options. You've got input, it could be a password, it could be a multiple line. So you've already got these three options available over here. And then again, keep input dialog always on top. It's a good one that I kind of keep on toggled, especially for this one. I keep it toggled on for those scenarios again, where if there are multiple windows, there's multiple applications going on, this dialog box will always come on the top. And then for the variables, the button pressed, well, the button press is going to be which is the button pressed over here. And then the user input, again, what type of user input it is. So when I click on it, these are the variables it'll automatically create. You could go ahead and change the variables that you want. I'll keep mine as is. But now I'm going to click on save. Again, as good stewards, we'll go and click on the save the entire flow. And then once that is done, let's go and run it. So when we are running it now, right now it says the flow has highlighted the first action. So that display message is running. All right, so I'll click on retry. As you can see, retry shows up on the button, but now comes the message box. And in the message box, I've actually got an option to do something. So I'm going to say something as because I'm awesome, just the way I am. And now I'll click on OK. So when I click on this, all of it is completed. A couple of things has happened over here. First of all, what was the button that I pressed? I pressed OK. And then what was my input? The user's input also came through over here. So if I actually go and increase a little bit, you can see right over here. So we need to know what was that button press. Let's make it a little bit more easier and to work with. So instead of the button press, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that and I'm going to say the display input BTTN, all right? The BTTN stands for button. Just helps me understand that. And I can also keep both of these toggled on. I'll click on save. And the moment I change that variable name, it automatically goes and changes it over here in the flow variables. This time we'll go and click on run. In the run, the first one ran. Okay, we'll ignore that. Second one ran. Again, this thing came in. I'll go and click on paste. I'll click on say just cancel. Moment I click on cancel, it is recording right away here that, hey, Daniel actually did not click on OK, but he clicked on cancel. However, whatever was the text I pasted in, it went and still recorded that. So the moment I made a change and added something in that blank field, it recorded that. So I really like how this variable works over here. All right, so we went and now did the dialog input, display input dialog. The display select date dialog is similar. So let's go through that one too, okay? So we've again got this entire dialog title. The title and the message seems to be a very common theme that comes along over here. Every single one on the term, the display message, display input dialog, again, it had the title. So we're gonna kind of keep it consistent too. And I'm gonna say the same thing, is read this dialog message. I'll say pick a date. And then in the in the dialog type, you've got a few options. You've got a single date, and you've also got a date range of 2 dates. So right now that's a limit. That's all you can do is 2 dates. But let's think about it. In a normal scenario, how many dates do you actually need? Well, I need 2. Why? Arrival, departure, start, end, or beginning, end. 2 are the most common numbers that you need. So that's why in this case, the 2 really works well. All right. So now I'll just go and select one date, and then I'll say prompt for date, or there is date and time. Both these options are available. Now your default value, you can go and put in whatever you want. So I'll actually go and type in the date that I have for today. I put it in this format. I can go in and toggle this one on, always be on the top. Now selected date, again, that is a good variable name because I only had one message for selected date, so I'll leave that as is. But again, if you want to go change it, you can go and click on it first, click on it again, and then change that variable name. In fact, you want to get into the habit of already having that var as a prefix or a postfix, something you can work on. But I'll go and click on save, and I'll go and click on the save the entire flow. And over here, we'll actually do something else. Check this out. On each of these actions where you have these 3 dots where it says more actions, when I click on it, I can actually go and disable that action. But did you just notice what happened? Check this out. I'll go and enable it again. Moment I enable it, that action went ahead and created a variable. The variable in this case was actually the message button pressed, right over here, message button pressed. But when I went and disabled this action, watch, that entire variable also disappears, which means it's giving you that consistency. If the message is not going to work, the variable will not be there. So it takes out any confusions that you may have. So do the same thing over here too. On the second action, I'll go and disable that, and we've gone ahead and lost that one as well. Not lost it, but it's gone ahead and hidden that. So this just helps me from my testing standpoint. So I'll click on run now. This time only the second one ran, and it's coming up and giving me again, read this, which means there's the title that's come up over here. Now there is the dialog box, and then I can go and I'll select what it is that I want. So I have this option right over there to go ahead and select the actual date drop down. I can pick and choose whatever date I want. I'll click on say January 9th, click on OK. Now that date has been added to the variable and the overall flow actually finished running. So this was the date dialog. Now let's go and take a look at the list dialog. So I'll come down again to the message boxes. I'll click on the list dialog and I'll do a drag and I'll drop it over here. So in the list dialog, again, there's title, there's the dialog message, and there's a list to choose from. So again, for the title, I'll do my favorite one, which is read this, 2 exclamation marks. Dialog message, I'll put something in. It says, select a color you'd like for your volunteer shirt to be like. Next is I can put a list to choose from. And one of the things is I can type it in over here, or I can start using the input variables, input output variables. So let's do that, all right? So I'll come now to my input and give me an error. Ignore that. We'll go fix it in a minute. As I click on the cancel, I'll click over here, and over here it's going to be an input. Input, I'm going to call this as my variable select from list, all right? Something like that. Data type will be of type list. So I'll select the list. And here is where I can click on edit, and it will go and start putting in all the information that I need. So the first thing is I'm going to go and put on click on the plus, and its default ID number is 0. It automatically does that, so we don't have to do anything. So for me, it's just going to be first a red, then I'll click on the plus again. I'll click on and type in green, click on the plus again, red, green. I'll put in blue, and then I'll finally end with yellow. So I did that, clicked on save, everything else looks good. Now, here's an option to mark it as sensitive. If you are going and putting in any variables information over here on the top, in this control, and if it's going to show up over there, watch this. If I click on save, you'll actually see what is the variable that you've added. However, if I go back in over here, I go and click on the mark as sensitive. If I toggle this on, I click on save, now you don't see it. You can also go and click on this icon, and that does the exact same thing. So something to keep in mind, because you might work on scenarios where there is some sensitive information that is being kept over there, and you can go ahead and restrict the access, or at least the view, out of sight, out of mind. You can go and hide that in functionality out there. All right, so we went and now got our variable. So let's go and fix this action, which is right there, the display select from list dialog. List to choose from. Now I'll click on the variable part, and I'll just go and grab that one, the right one over there on the top. See what's on the top over there. And when I do that, my errors, everything goes away. And then here I've got some more advanced settings to work with. So limit to a list, I'll just keep it at that. I will say allow empty selection. No, I'm not going to allow empty selection. I'm going to toggle that on. Now allow multiple selection. That is something that we can work on. So first, now let me just click on save. What we'll also do is we'll click on the action above. and I'll go ahead and now disable that action, and I'll go and do a run. So only that one, the last one works. And when I go and click on this, it says select a color you'd like to select from. See, there's a drop down option. But this is also so responsive, right? You can go and expand that, make it small. I love how responsive this is out of the box. I don't have to do anything. So I'll go and just select red. The moment I do that, it went and actually put in the selected item, which is the red over here. What I can do is I can go back in my variable products, which is the selected item. I'll go and double click on that, and I want to go and change from item to go and say selected color. Okay, I can go and do that. Now selected color. Now watch, there's something else over here. There's something called as selected index. Well, what is that? Well, let's actually go to another test first, right? I'll go ahead and do that. I'll go and click on run. And this time, when it comes up, I'm going to go and select, say, green, all right? So when I click on green, first of all, the selected color is green, but the selected index is 1. It's actually telling you what was that index number tied to green. So in our case, if I go and click on run now, if I go and select the first one is red. Remember, the first ID number was 0. It started from 0 and then it worked from 0, 1, 2, 3. So green is 1, blue is 2, yellow is 3. So if I select that, say yellow, now we will get that 3 over there. So I really like that by you just creating on the flow over here, it is automatically not just giving you what was the friendly name that you selected, which is the colors, but also what was the ID that was attached to it. That way, if you've got multiple ones which may have the same names, you can always have that primary ID, which in this case is the index. Also, if I go back in over here, there is something called allow multiple selection. So when I turn this on, I am now able to go and select multiple ones. So let's try that as well. I'll go and click on save. I'll go and click on run. It's only going to run that one. And now you saw that there is a checkbox available. It's not just a radio button or a drop down, it's just a checkbox. So I can select on red, I can select on green, I can select multiple ones. So I'll click on OK. And now over here on the right for the variables, it tells me that these are the ones that you selected. So what I'm going to do is in the next action, I'm going to go and drop another display message. And in the display message, I'm going to actually say you selected, and I'll give a count. So how do I get this count? Like how many of these color options did you select? I want a count of that. So let's go take a look at that. I'll go ahead and now select the variable. The one that we actually used was the selected items. In my selected items, now that you've checked that box in the previous one, I have this thing called count. So I can just select this count and I'll go and select it. And now that gives me that variable, which is a selected items dot count. And I'll say you selected this number, and I'll say colors. All right, so that takes care of that. But now inside the message, I want to actually show which one of those did I actually select. I'll say you selected the following items, put a colon, I'll hit enter, and then here in the variable, select that. And then for the selected items, I just go and click that one. And it will always show me all of these over here. Again, it is going to be a menu. I'll keep this on the top. It's not really going to be anything else. I'll just keep everything else as is because we already tested that before. I'll click on save, all right? Now let's go and do a run. In my run, I've got this red, and I'll go and select yellow. So I selected 2. And I click on OK. Now the message came up. See the next one, it says you selected 2 colors because we were able to use the count. And it also told me which one of these, which is the red and the yellow. So I really like this functionality of how when you save the variable, especially for the selected, especially for multiple selections, it automatically has the built-in feature to give you a count. All right, so now the next 2 things has to do with a file and a folder. So when you look at the message boxes, it actually has 2 functionalities, which is to first do as a file and a folder. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch things up just a little bit. Let's go and first grab the folder one, and we'll assign, hey, go ahead and select the folder, and we'll go and take a look at exactly what that folder is. And then in the next one, we will use this value. What was the folder that you selected? And then over there inside that folder, go and select a file. So that's what we're going to do. So in the description, I'm going to go and say, select your initial folder. And then now I can go ahead and put, I can give an idea what the initial folder should be like. So for example, when I come in, I'll actually go to my initial folder, which will be on this PC. It'll be on the D drive. I've got a whole bunch of them for the in the documents, demos. You see, I'm intentionally putting it all the way down inside the Power Platform. Okay, this is going to be my initial folder. At least I know where the user will usually start, and then let the user continue over there. So I'm going to go and say selected folder. I like that variable. I'll go and click on save. And then now inside that, we'll go ahead and now drop in the select file dialog. So in the select file dialog, when I go and click on that, again, I will go now and say select a file. The initial folder, instead of me going and grabbing that initial folder, I can click on that variable, and for that one, it'll be the selected folder. Selected folder was the one that we went ahead and saved the previous action right there. Display select for dialog box, it was selected folder. So I don't have to go and now do an initial folder. I could the exact same way we did up over here, or I can go ahead and reference directly my selected folder. So when I click on selected folder, I'll click that one, I'll go and click on save, and now when I do that, we can go and do a run. So I'll actually go ahead and now click on that one. Watch this. When I click on that one, okay, the one which I've just action number 4, if I go ahead and now say disable this action, we immediately get an error. Do you understand why? Because now this error is saying that the variable selected items doesn't exist. Why? Because the selected items was created in step number 4. Moment we went and disabled that variable disabled from our variables list, and therefore we got this error. It is an error, but that error actually makes sense. So there's no troubleshooting we have to do over here. We just go ahead and now disable this action as well, and we are golden. So again, as good stewards, let me go and save the entire flow. And now I shall go and do a run. So in run, it'll first directly come up to the select folder dialog. I love this functionality because the Power Automate for desktop is directly tied into your operating system, which means the folder function comes up directly. So okay, I was started with the Power Platform. I like that, but I want to go one step further. I'm going to go into Power Apps for Platform. I'm going to go into Power Automate, and in my Power Automate, I'm going to go for Power Automate for desktop. That's the one that I want to select. So I'll click on OK. Now you see the next one, what happened? It automatically opened up a place for me to select the file, and that place was the one that we just selected in the previous action, and we saved that to a variable and we assigned that variable in the second action. And so therefore in the second action, it automatically took me to that destination which we just selected. Make sense? Good. So if I now over here, I'll go in one more step further in the message boxes. I'll click on that, and I've got a RPA message box, which is a Word document. I'll click on that and I'll click on open. And so it automatically went and saved it directly into the file dialog. Now, did you notice what happened? When we opened up that folder location, there was a multiple files over there. It could get a little confusing for the end user. So one of the beautiful things to stop that confusion is right here in this action, I've got this functionality now to do a file filter. And I can either name the whole file or I can just filter it based on the file extensions. So that folder location actually had two types of files. It had a document, a Word document, and an Excel spreadsheet. So here is how you go ahead and put in the syntax of the filtering. I'll put in an asterisk because it could be all of those files I want, not just one. I want all of those files with a .docx. That's a Word document, all right? I'll keep it at this right now for one. I'll also go and say, okay, check if the file exists. That's fine. I'll say allow multiple selections. We can do all of that. I'll click on save. I'll go and do a run. And now when I do a run, the first option comes up is where you want to go ahead and find the folder. It already remembers, which is that base folder, which is a Power Platform. I like it. I'll click on OK. Second one comes up. It's already in the Power Platform. I went one step further. It was actually in Power Automate for desktop. And it was in 3, which was in the message boxes. Now, did you see this, that it went ahead and actually filtered it down to the docx file? So here it is. Here is my docx file. It's a Word document. So if I go and select that, I can click on open. Now it has gone ahead and captured that location and what was the file I selected. But what if I had multiple files? I want it to be filtered based on the Word and the Excel. Well, for that, it's pretty simple. You've got this, whatever you did, put in a semicolon, then put in another asterisk, .xlsx. I'll click on save. We'll go and do another run. In the run, this time I'll go and actually take it one step below so we can save a few steps afterwards right there. And next one comes up. It is in the Power Automate for desktop, message boxes. And now you can see I have a docx to select from and I have an xlx over here. Before I had only one of them, which was just the docx. Don't believe me? Let me show you again. I come back over here and I go back to this step, which was the actual filtering one. I'll take off the this section right there, all right? Everything which was the semicolon, semicolon and the one after that, I'll intentionally go ahead and wipe that off. Click on save. We'll go ahead and run the flow. We'll run the first step. That action number 6 runs. I like it. Leave it as is. Action number 7 runs. I'll go back into a Power Automate for desktop, 3 message boxes. And here, as you can see, all I have is docx because docx is the only filter option that I gave over there. Next is if I go back now and if I go and now go back into the filtering place, let me add the remaining section again, which was the semicolon, asterisk, doc, and also the XLSX. Click on save. We'll go ahead and run this. It'll come back to the step number 6. We are good. Let's go to step number 7. In step number 7, let's go back into those few other steps. Messages, see now I've got the docx and I've got the Excel. And so it has doing that filtering over there. So do you understand the wowness over here? So when you build it from the Power Automate for desktop and you are actually adding those filters in these actions, those actions directly apply right into this operating system, because this is a select a file property box that is opened up, built into the operating system, and you've got control over how these things function thanks to the Power Automate for desktop. All right, so we went and actually looked at both the file and both the folder. Now let's look at the last piece, which is the custom form. So here it is the last item. I'll select it, I'll do a drag and drop right over here, and that's the whole form that pops up on that. I like everything which is there already as is. The variable, which is the custom form data, I like it, I'll leave that as is. So now I'm going to click on the custom form designer, and the moment we do that, this form designer shows up over here. And it's something we've not seen before, but it's very intuitive. Let's take a few minutes to understand this. So on the left side, I've noticed that these form elements are basically broken down into 3 categories. It's the elements which we can use for inputs, anything that we can user can do an input. Other one is for a display, the text block or the image. And then the other one is an action. Button is a great example. Button is somebody performing an action to click on it. And so breaking it down into these 3 elements makes sense. And so this is how it works. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start designing the form a little. And what I like is that you have the form structure on the top, and on the bottom you have got the view. So on the top, what I want to do is I want to put an element right over there on the top, and I do a drag and drop and it automatically goes up on the top. Now here is the ID. It's like, what is this tied to? And then I can also go and put in a default text. So for example, the default text over here on, if you see the top is what we show in the structure is the actual ID. On the bottom is the actual text. So if I were to change this, and if I go and paste it something like this, provide this information for the item to be delivered, well, that falls under text, the actual text. In the ID, it falls under text block. One tip I'll give you is go ahead and remove the space. Just keep the ID without any spaces, because it's going to help you in the future. That's just something that I've been doing as my practice side over here. All right. So now I've got this nice label on the top. I can go and do a little bit more. I can make it center so it becomes nice and center. I can go ahead and increase the actual number of lines at once, font size. I can make it all of them like that. I can make it nice and large. So this actually becomes a nice large one. Change the color, at least for a nice label. Next, I want to get the full name of the user. So for the text input, I can go and grab that. I'll leave the text input everything as is. The label, the ID, I'll go and change that to say the text input like that. In the label, I'll go and paste this in. It says add your full name, and then you can put the default value. Now see what happened over here. We went and grabbed the text input. This section on the bottom right over here, that is where the user will go and put in their name. However, we want to tell that, hey, this was the element that was added. What is that element? And therefore that label comes in very handy. And you can put in default values. You can go and put default values tied to any of the variables that you may have populated. You've got that flexibility inside this form, and this can also be a multiple line. Now, since we've gone ahead and put in as a text, you've got these options. Is it a text? Is it a phone number? Because it can go ahead and add that syntax for that phone number. Is it a URL? Is it an email? It's giving you all of this flexibility right over here. So I'm pretty good on that. Next, I'll go and put in as a date input. For that, again, on my ID, I'll just go and make that as a without a space. In the label, I'm going to say like something like this. When is a good delivery date? And as you can see now, the same thing is happening. When is a good delivery date? I can put in a default value, minimum, all of that. I've got that flexibility over here. Next is the number input. And the number input is basically a numerical value. So for the numerical value, when I go up, I can go and put this name as here as the number input. I'll put that in as the I. For the label, I'm going to paste this in. This is how many do you need? And I can put in some values like default value. If you're going to go and order something, you at least need 1, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't order it. But I can put in a maximum value count as well. So I'll just put in a maximum of 10. And now we are actually done. I can do that right over here. Finally, also, obviously, I need to get a submit button. In the submit button, I can just do an ID submit. Okay, everything else looks good. So now I'll just click on done. I'll click on save. I'll also go and do my due diligence of saving the entire flow. And then once that is done, let's actually go and do a test. So I'll go and do a run. and I'll just click on OK. I'll just click on another OK. Oh, I gotta actually go to my Automate desktop, go and grab the one before, grab a document, do that OK. Next is see the form came up. Now form is also very responsive. You see it's able to actually go and be responsive automatically. So that's pretty neat. And all the design that we gave, it is showing up right over here. So I can actually go and type in my name over here, good day for a delivery. I can go and put and say this needs to be on the 2023 like that. How many of these do I need? I'm going to say I'm going to need 2 and I click on OK. Now here is what's happened. This input which from the custom form, it has come in as this format. As I hover my mouse over it, you can see that this information is put over there. It's coming in this format, which is great. We are able to go and take the information. But Daniel, what is the use for something like this? And for that, I'm going to go and create a subflow. But let me at least give you an example of what I'm trying to achieve. Once a form is submitted, all that data of that form, I'm going to go and take that and automatically go and put that into an Excel spreadsheet. I've already got the spreadsheet. I'm going to go and put this in. So let me first show you what that spreadsheet looks like. Right over here, I'll go into my File Explorer. In my File Explorer, I've got the same location, but I have my, right over here is an Excel spreadsheet. In my Excel spreadsheet, I've got a simple spreadsheet with these 3 columns. See what is the full name, how many going to date delivery, how many items, and then the date. This is where I'm going to go ahead and save my information. So now I'll just say I don't want to save everything. I know that it is in this location, so I'll go and close that. But here, right after this, we are now going to go and create a subflow. So this is the first subflow that I'm showing you. And for that example, so I'm going to go and click on the subflow. I like the name because it's only tied to this flow. I'll go and click on save over here. And then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab or launch the Excel. So I just typed in Excel because the first thing I'm going to do is launch it. So I'll click on launch, and in my document, I'm going to say open an existing document. Let's go grab that document, the one that we selected right here. Click on open. So we grabbed it, and now I'll go and click on save. Next thing is we want to go ahead and get the first row and the first thing. In fact, I've already covered that in one of my videos. So I'll go and grab that one. I don't want the first free column. I do want the first free row. And that is going to be automatically assigned to this variable, the first free row. So we'll be using that. Click on save. Next thing that I want to do is now write to that Excel spreadsheet. So I'll grab this over here. I'm going to write the value to a specified cell. The column 1 is going to be 1. And then the row is actually going to come directly into the first free row. Click on the selected one. But now is I need to go ahead and write the value. How do I go ahead and get that value? Here's the trick. You go ahead to the right to the value field. Click on the variable section, you go and grab the custom form data, but in here we are going to do a little bit of manipulation. So you go past the % sign and then you open up these square brackets. In the square brackets, I'm going to put 2 single quotes, and now you go ahead and type in whatever was that variable that we went and selected for the full name. So let's just go and confirm that as well. I'll click on save. Then I'll actually go back to my main flow. See, I don't have to go outside or do a back or anything. There are tabs opened over here. So in the main flow for that custom form, when I click on it, go inside the custom form designer. You see how we had put these things over here? Well, actually for the text input, when I click on the text input, I want this one not to be text input. I want that to be your full name right there, because that's the variable name that I give over there. It's a good thing we came back over here and checked, right? So I'll click on that and I'll get the full name. And then let's take a look at the other ones as well. For the date, it is called as date input. And for the number, it's called as number input. These are basically the 3: full name, date input, and number input. So I'll click on done because we want to make sure that full name gets saved. Go back into our subflow. In our subflow, when I click on this one over here, we'll go and make sure that that's how it is. Custom form data, perfect. Open the brackets, close the brackets, single quotes, and then full name. So we're done. This is in the column number 1. So now I'll click on save. And now I'll actually do a Control C, Control V. And in the bottom, we are going to go ahead and put in date input. So column will be column number 2. And the full name, we will change that to date input. Right there, date input. And this is something that I have to type in. So I'll click on save. And then the last one is I'll do a Control C, Control V, double click on that. This is going to be column number 3, and that is going to be the number input. So I'll just change from date and I'll type in number. I'll click on save. And then after that, we will now go ahead and close the Excel spreadsheet. So I'll do this one. I'll actually close it. This is going to be, yes, I will save the document and everything else looks good. So I'll click on save, and we'll go ahead and do a good stewards, click on save this one as well. And now we got to go back to our main flow and we need to add one more step, which is the run subflow. So right over here, I grab that run subflow, drag it, drop it, drag it, drop it right over there. In the run subflow, it's only giving me one option because that's the only one we have here, subflow. Select that, click on save. And now let's do a full run. So I'll click on run and the form comes up first. In the form, I'm going to call myself as Jane Doe. What is a good day for a delivery? I'll call that as 13/20/23. And how many do I need? I'll go and say I need 8. And I'll click on OK. Moment I do that, it immediately opened up Excel spreadsheet. I went and did all of that and then came back. It did really fast. But let's verify, did it actually do all of that? Well, actually, we can verify one way. The flow ran, the subflow, and it's giving us all the variable values. See, Jane Doe, that's the one that I put in. All of those, it ran successfully. But the ultimate test is when we go to the Excel spreadsheet, do I see that information? And there it is. That's the spreadsheet that I just opened up. And it did. There was a text before, so it went to the next available one and it put in the Jane Doe, the date I gave, and the delivery one. So you see how we were able to successfully go ahead and now have that main, use the custom form first of all in the main one, and then I wanted to take those values of the custom form and do something. And for that, we went and added a subflow, and the subflow took care of the rest of the steps. Open up the Excel spreadsheet, took the information from the form, populated the spreadsheet, and went ahead and closed it. So as a quick recap, we went through all the actions available in the message box. And for the last one, which was the custom form, we went and created a subflow. For the first time, we created a subflow, which took all of those items from the custom form and automatically added to an Excel spreadsheet. That was the icing on the cake. So hopefully this video was helpful to you. And as always, keep using Power Automate with the desktop tool. Hello, hello, hello. So if you like this video, go ahead and click on that subscribe button and smash that like button. Also, if you have a few extra seconds, can you go ahead and put in a comment? Either say something nice or give me ideas for my next video. And until then, see ya.